And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again on Inside OC. Okay, so let's continue. I saw you bristle a little, Larry, when it came up about the corporate interest.
The Koch brothers, it's like you're bringing up the biggest monster in the world. But when you look at California, who's the biggest political spender in this state? By far, CTA. Between 2000 and 2013, over $290 million on candidates and causes, more than twice as much as or about twice as much as the second biggest spender, which I think was also a union. So let's not play the union, David and Goliath thing here. If anything, you guys are the Goliath, and people like Rebecca are the Davids.
Yeah.
Obviously, when we talk about everything we do is decided through a political process. So there are teachers like any teacher, any member in any school that's represented by us has an opportunity to run. We have an 800-member body that we call State Council that makes every policy decision around everything. That includes any political spending we do. It's not, the president gets to sit in a dark room and, check a little box and say, oh, I like you, I get to pick you. It doesn't happen that way. It's all debated and vetted. There are some teachers that have varying opinions that are decided by the majority, but that's the way the American system works. Congress is exactly the same way. They decide, they make decisions, they spend money, they do politics. They didn't ask me whether they could invade Iraq, but they did it, and I am paying for it. And I don't get to opt out, go to the Supreme Court saying I don't want to pay for that, so I'm going to pick and choose which programs I pay for in Congress. It's the way representative democracy works, as long as it's an open process. Being heard is important. You need to have your voice heard, especially if you're a minority, if you have a minority opinion. And nobody should be bullied for that at all.
You mean like Republican is a minority opinion?
No, we have Republicans. We actually support Republicans. I was just at a hearing with Valadeo in Washington, D.C. We base all of our opinions on educational policy, and that's regardless, because when it comes to education, it's not about right and left, it's about right and wrong.
Eric, please. When I shared a stage, as I mentioned earlier to you, with your predecessor, Dean Vogel, he mentioned that about 65% of California teachers are Democrat, 35 Republican. That sounds about right, maybe it's a state. What percent of CTA's political giving goes to Republicans? Can you tell me that?
Our basis of spending is based on educational policy. Regardless of whether Republican or Democrat, if they have an education policy we can support, we will support that candidate. Buck McKeon is a great example, another one in Congress. We've supported, because I'm going blank, on several Republican candidates who we found out to say, we're looking for them.
I think the short answer, though, would be that because you agree with the education policies of Democrats, they get the overwhelming
and
percentage.
It's so much easier to buy those people.
Well, I think that's a rather cynical spin, but
well, this was said by Don Parada, who's a Democrat, repeated by Gloria Romero, who's a Democrat, said that the CTA considers itself the fourth co-equal branch of government. I'm sure you've heard that, right?
I'm sure that they say a lot of things about us which are not necessarily true. So I wouldn't necessarily.
Is there anything we didn't touch on that you would like to have had us discuss on this?
A lot of times when people think of unions, they think of Jimmy Hoffa and the Teamsters, that old industrial union model. And we're so much more than that, because we're all teachers who are concerned about our students' learning. And everything we do is focused on that. You look through our strategic plan, it's focused on that. And it's focused on, that means better working conditions, because you need to have the better to attract the brightest to the profession. We know money isn't the main driver for that. Isn't the main driver for getting the best and the brightest into the profession. We know that if we want to keep them, they have to be treated well, they have to be mentored, they have to get the right preparation, and we're working in all of those areas, including professional development. As I said, as we partner with Linda Darling-Hammond in Stanford, working with our Instructional Leadership Corps, we hope to train eventually 3,000 teachers across the state to do local training in their local district. That's about teaching and learning.
Larry, anything that you wish we had touched on? Besides this part, which is really.
No, I think at the end of the day, it's about the freedom to choose, and the teachers' union is a private organization, and just imagine if you went to buy a car, and you said, well, you have to pay the AAA because they're on your team and they advocate for you. oh, you're going to buy a gun, you have to join the NRA. I mean, this is kind of crazy thinking. So I don't get why teachers have to pay money. They don't have to join, you're right, but they do have to pay money to the union, and I think it's wrong. And once again, members-only contracts. And you know, as powerful as CTA is, get this enshrined in state law, and then you won't have the free rider problem, because people like me, you won't have to, you know.
Yeah, getting aside, putting aside the fairness or unfairness from an employment standpoint, again, to get to the argument, which I know you hear a lot, Eric, that some of the interests of the teachers union are not aligned with the interests of the students. And just what Rebecca brought up on tenure. I mean, is it really, doesn't it just seem any reasonable person knows that if you do something by seniority, some of these teachers aren't as good as some of the teachers that lose their jobs? I mean, would you dispute that? Would you say every single teacher that has seniority and stays on the job is better than all the teachers that are let go?
So that's a little bit of a misunderstanding of what the law actually says. Districts that have high needs in certain areas are allowed to skip more junior teachers for layoffs and actually lay off more senior teachers based on high needs areas and all those kind of things.
It's a rich school.
But frankly, if an administrator is doing their job and they're evaluating teachers in the way that they should be evaluating teachers, going into their classrooms, talking with them, if teachers are given time to collaborate with each other, and the research shows all of this works, it's not rocket science, that they can be treated fairly, they can be and it says, and the research also shows experience matters. You know, you may have a hotshot young teacher, but experience matters. You know, some say that teachers don't hit their stride until their 8th year. Really, I mean, is that really the only profession where experience, that we can say the doctors, you know, we're going to get rid of all the old doctors because they're no good anymore, and because we're just going to have the new ones because they've got all the latest stuff. I mean, that alone doesn't make any sense. I mean, this whole last and first up, but that's not the way the system works.
And a lot of other studies show that between 3 to 5 years teachers peak and don't get better after that. My question to you is, we're 4th grade teachers in the same school. You're a teacher of the year, I'm a mediocre teacher. One of us has to get laid off. I signed a contract one day before you, and according to the law in California, Mr. Mediocre gets to stay, and you, teacher of the year, lose your job. Do you really think that's a good way to run an education system?
First of all, if you do play what if a lot. You could play what if and play, well, what if I just had a day before? No, if you have a mediocre teacher, my question to you would be, or to my administrator, is why aren't they giving you the help that you need and the kind of evaluation that you need to become a better teacher? That's the real question, because the system doesn't help him become a better teacher. Nobody wants a bad teacher, least of all me as a regular teacher, because I get to pick up his slack. Absolutely. If he's a mediocre teacher, I pick up his slacks.
That's
I
right,
don't want that.
Especially in middle school. Yeah, you have a bad teacher, and then they come to my class. I spend half the class getting kids stopping bouncing off the walls. To answer your question, Eric, I agree with you. Teaching teachers how to teach better is important, but what happens after trying to teach better? They don't, and he's still or she's still a mediocre teacher, and this happens.
And I'm getting the wrap-up sign. This you guys what we needed was an hour. We needed at least an hour. We needed an hour, half an hour for Rebecca, and a half an hour for you guys. We really did. But thanks so much again to both of you.
It's an important topic
for coming on, and thanks. I do appreciate the fact that the CTA, even though knowing it's, you know, sometimes you're kind of coming into the gladiator pit here. You guys have been great. You guys have been great about, you know, making yourself available and getting the word out.
We'll always
much
stand up and
appreciated.
fight
Larry,
for
it's
our
always
kids.
great to have you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks.
Inside OC is brought to you by 5 Point. 5 Point is an independent real estate development company with assets under management across California. 5 Point is a proud sponsor of public television and community programming.